Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, tracking the Toronto Raptors 113-98 loss to the Orlando Magic. Now, obviously Friday night, a crazy emotional return. DeMar DeRozan, one of the greatest players in Raptors history, came back. The Toronto Raptors got the best of them with that epic game, and if you want to lift your spirits, certainly listen to that podcast, because that was a super encouraging game, super hype as a Raptors fan, all that sort of stuff. But this one was sort of the opposite. We had similar circumstances. Obviously, Terrence Ross, a guy that was also a shooting guard, small forward for the Toronto Raptors, and he made his return tonight as well. Obviously, he's played a couple games against us prior to this as well, played a few games in the ACC, so it wasn't his immediate return, but nonetheless, he's making a comeback, and his was much more successful than DeMar DeRozan's, to say the least. Terrence Ross, we'll get straight into it. As the title disclaims, he had a revenge game against the Raptors. 28 points, 9 rebounds for T. Ross tonight, 3 threes, 9 of 21 from the field. But if Riker was here, unfortunately Riker couldn't be on the pod tonight. But Terrence Ross, you guys always, I was a big fan of T. Ross. Riker hated him, but he came out and really brought it to his old team. Kind of quieted the T. Ross haters in Toronto. Really played well tonight, and the Toronto Raptors, unlike Terrence Ross, did not. So let's just get straight into it. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard did not play tonight, but the Raptors have been very solid without him throughout the season. I believe this is our 4th loss without Kawhi, and we've won 13 games. Not 100% sure if that's completely accurate, but we've certainly had a winning record without Kawhi. And the Orlando Magic, a strong-ish team. They're below 500. They're maybe not strong. Strong is the wrong word, but they're by no means a trash squad. They're not tanking. They definitely have some great players. Nikola Vucevic is an all-star. Terrence Ross obviously had a great game tonight. And they have a lot of athletic young guys that can knock down the three. And the Toronto Raptors still should have got this win. Without Kawhi Leonard, regardless, the team should have came out here and really brought more to the table in this game. And the whole time, I think the Raptors were just searching for some energy, searching for something to happen. And, unfortunately, no one could step up. I guess Kyle Lowry had a solid game. There were stretches where he really put the game on his back. He had 19 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds. That's an all-around Kyle Lowry game. That box score screams Kyle Lowry. And with Kawhi Leonard kind of obviously not playing, Kyle took it upon himself to really try and man the team. And he did it for stretches, kept it close throughout the middle of the game, but unfortunately wasn't enough because the guy that usually steps up in Kawhi's absence wasn't really there tonight. Pascal Siakam, 10 points, 11 rebounds. Not an awful game by any means, but 3 of 10 from the field. Knocked down 2 threes, but Pascal Siakam, he was missing a lot of those because he makes phenomenal drives. Every game, he gets to the rim and finishes around the rim. But unfortunately tonight, he was getting there, slashing, getting the good shots, but those little floaters, those spin move layups, they were not going in tonight. 3 of 10 from the field. Pascal Siakam, usually he takes over these games. I'm sure if a few of those more of those bunnies went down, Siakam would have had a stronger performance and maybe changed the tide of this game, but unfortunately wasn't able to do it tonight. OG Anunoby got the start in place of Kawhi Leonard. He's been good as of late, but unfortunately, again, didn't have much of an impact tonight. Missed a few easy shots. He knocked down a 3, but only 5 points and 6 rebounds for OG. Played solid defense. Didn't look completely trash out there, but Danny Green as well. Nothing substantial from Danny Green. 10 points. Just an average Danny Green game. And we just made a podcast breaking down, debating who should start the center position for the Toronto Raptors. Definitely check that video out if you haven't already. And tonight was Marc Gasol's first start, and he had a solid game. And it's kind of weird. I'll dive straight more into it. But he had 16 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, all 7 of 13 from the field. Pretty solid. He knocked down a 3. But in the first half especially, when he's starting, because obviously we can finish the lineups with whoever we want. Obviously Marc Gasol is such a talent that we want him ending the games. But when he was initially in the starting lineup, obviously Kawhi's not there as well, but he wasn't very strong. He missed a few bunnies around the rim. He had a couple missed, I don't know if they were necessarily turnovers, but passes that didn't go straight through. It was certainly a situation of lack of chemistry with all the other players. I think that's how I determine it, because people were cutting and the passes we were throwing, especially the first, second quarter, it seemed like they were all lob passes because no one knew where anyone was going. No one knew kind of the spacing where the cutters were going to go, and Marc Gasol threw a lot of those. They usually were on target, but it kind of got us out of the flow and out of the rhythm of our offense. Obviously, for anyone that's played basketball knows that if you're going to knock down shots, you want to be in a crisp flow to a game. You get the ball in your shot pocket, you get the passes on time, on target, the shots are way easier to hit, the drives are really easier to make out of your triple threat, and it seemed like those passes passes were all a bit lobby. Not necessarily turnovers, but certainly got players out of their rhythm. And the offense just really wasn't happening tonight. And it wasn't for the lack of good shots. The Toronto Raptors got some pretty solid shots tonight. There were some open looks. At the beginning of the season, the Raptors really struggled from three, and this was our biggest issues and losses to start the year. But for the past month or so, the three-point shooting has been back. We progressed to the mean, because we were down below, but we have so many good shooters on this roster. It was bound to jump right back, and tonight looked like one of those games at the beginning of the year. The shots just weren't going down. Everything kind of seemed out of rhythm, and unfortunately, led to the loss. The Magic were hungry. They came out really aggressive, ready to go, and yeah, it's just how it worked. The bench had a kind of an impact. I just talked about Gasol. Serge Ibaka was pretty solid off the bench. 14 points, 5 rebounds, 7-14 from the field. Would have liked to see him get more shots in the mid-range area. It seemed like that was something that was really effective, but Jeremy Lin struggled creating plays and doing things off the dribble, and that's a rare sight as someone that's watched Jeremy Lin a good bit over the past few years, and even in his couple games with the Raptors, he's a very good slasher and creator for other players, but didn't seem to have everything going tonight. Seemed a bit uncomfortable out there, so to speak. So, Serge Ibaka would certainly obviously benefits when the point guard is better giving him the ball, and I'm sure Jeremy Lin will just happen as they get more chemistry and all that sort of stuff. No worries about the Jeremy Lin situation there. 6 points and 2 of 8 from the field from him, 5 assists, which is still pretty solid, but certainly would have liked to see him get Serge Ibaka the ball a bit more in the mid-post area. But two guys that did impress off the bench tonight. Firstly, Jody Meeks. I made a podcast reacting to the signing. We signed him on a 10-day contract. A lot of people didn't really know who he was. I said, I put in the title, he's a three-point specialist. I kind of took some heat for that, but, that's his game. His percentages did dip in his last season, but his game revolves around being a three-point shooter. And we saw it tonight. He had a few ones that were in and out, but there's a stretch during the second quarter where he came in the game and kind of got the momentum going for the Raptors. And we needed something like that in the second half, but unfortunately we couldn't, and he couldn't provide the second half. But certainly in the first half, 10 points, 2 rebounds, solid impact in the short span that he got in that first go-around, but unfortunately the second half couldn't really do it. But nonetheless, Jody Meeks is a guy. He's not a scrub. He's not a scrub by any means. I said that in the video that when we picked him up. He's not a guy that's going to come in here and be a project or something like that. He's been in and around the league. He's capable of doing things on the court. Should we rely upon Jody Meeks? By no means, but certainly if there's injuries, if we need to throw in a veteran player because of under whatever circumstances, he's a guy that I'd rely upon more so than other players in the buyout market. So I'm happy with the pickup of Jody Meeks. He certainly impressed tonight in that first stretch of basketball he played. Hopefully he can keep it up and maybe be a consistent three-point shooter for this roster. And who knows, if he can hit those shots consistently, maybe he'll be able to crack the rotation. And another guy that impressed off the bench tonight, Patrick McCaw, 8 points for him, 2 rebounds and assists. He always does the little things. He always does the little things on the court that makes teams better. And, that's Patrick McCaw's value. That's why he keeps getting run for this basketball team, despite some games where he's just, has no points, has 1 point. Patrick McCaw is going to get minutes because of the other things he does, maybe not necessarily in the playoffs, but certainly during the regular season. And in games where he's capable of scoring, and if he can consistently put the ball in the hoop, maybe get 6 to 8 points per game, along with everything else, I think he could be a valuable rotation piece for the Toronto Raptors, but obviously that consistency isn't there yet. But had it tonight, he had 8 points tonight. A 3, he knocked down a 3, which is solid. Patrick McCaw is an interesting player. I'm interested to see how his game progresses as we inch forward to the playoffs, and if he doesn't necessarily crack the rotation this year, maybe he's a project for the future. He's not. This is like the opposite of Jody Meeks. Maybe Patrick McCaw could develop into this sort of player, but I think Jody Meeks might be a more reliable guy now, just because his veteranship and all that sort of stuff. But who knows if Jody will be here after 10 days. The buyout deadline, I think, is the day that Jody Meeks' contract expires, so we'll see what happens. We're going to swing it straight into the segments. Tonight, the Kawhi Doom like that play of the day. It's going to Kyle Lowry and Marc Gasol. Marc Gasol had the ball around the three-point line. Kyle Lowry had it on the wing. The ball he threw a kind of over-the-shoulder pass to Kyle, who threw it right back. Nice little give and go. Marc Gasol came down for the M1. That was an exciting play. Obviously the Toronto Raptors didn't have the greatest game tonight, but there's certainly flashes in this game, seeing how Marc Gasol and all these guys could gel together. It's going to take some time. I'm not stressed out at all by this game, and that was a fun little play that got me a little bit hyped about seeing these guys going forward. So encouraging stuff there. But not all plays can be the Kawhi Doom like that play of the day, and some just make you say, oh geez. And tonight, the oh geez play of the game, two guys that do have chemistry, two guys that have been working really well this season, Kyle Lowry and Pascal Siakam. Lowry threw a full court lob pass to Pascal Siakam. Usually, he's got such good hands. He's got, so fast. He's so athletic. The ball was thrown up there to him. Pascal caught it right around the rim to throw a nice lob that would have energized the team. We were begging for a shot, begging for a play just to hit a run. For this whole stretch, we were missing threes, and they were making me say, oh, geez. Then this one play seemed like the moment that was going to turn around. I remember Leo saying a couple of possessions before, the Raptors are primed to break out on a run, and this full court lob seemed like it could have triggered it, but Pascal Siakam unfortunately missed the dunk. He missed a lot of the shots he usually makes tonight, so then that was just sort of deflating. It went from a moment that could have completely shifted around the game to one that kind of dulled out the roster, kind of dumbed down the squad, and it sucks. That's just unfortunate. It makes you say, oh geez, watching the game. Regardless, with the way Pascal's been playing all season, there's going to be very few games where he's missing shots around the rim, and it might be the last one we see going into the playoffs because he's been super consistent. And finally, the infamous, the one and only Damari Carroll Gold Star Award, and it's going to Norman Powell. Norman Powell, a guy, it's interesting because Terrence Ross and Norman Powell were kind of the two young wings, and Norm showed a lot of promise in the playoffs. T. Ross obviously struggled, and Norm got the big contract. We traded away T. Ross for Serge Ibaka, and if you guys remember at the time, people in the Orlando Magic were looking for Norman Powell instead of Terrence Ross initially, and at the time with Norm's playoff success and all that sort of stuff, it made sense. Terrence Ross' struggles and consistencies and Norm's potential. But, Terrence Ross has really flourished the past couple of years with Orlando. He's dealt with some injuries, but certainly he's amped up his game this season. Norman Powell, he's been great off the bench for a large stretch of the season, but unfortunately the past couple of games has struggled, and obviously last season really struggled with the Raptors in the beginning of this year. So hopefully Norman Powell can turn it back around, get back to the Norm God we've been seeing for stretches this season. But unfortunately, 0 points for him tonight in 15 minutes, 0 of 3 from the field, had 2 assists, a turnover. Really just doesn't look super engaged. Usually he's a spark off the bench that can get buckets, and last game he missed a lot of bunnies around the rim, which is unfortunate because Norm goes to the rim with such a pace. He gets good looks, it just sometimes is out of control. People listen to the pod, I'm a huge Norman Powell fan, and his inconsistencies do frustrate me as a Raptors fan, but I'm hoping the upside of Norman Powell comes through and we get back to that January consistency that we've had from Norm. Anyways, this game, very disappointing as a Raptors fan. We should be beating the Orlando Magic, but I'm not taking too much away from it. It's unfortunate, but it's how it goes. How these games go, regardless, you're the best from listening this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. The Toronto Raptors, they'll be good. We're coming off a 7-game win streak, a poor loss to Orlando. Nothing to stress about. We won the Spurs game. We've been winning close games as of late. These games happen. These games happen over the course of a year. We have a lot of new guys. We're dealing with some injuries. We have all that sort of stuff. Raptors are best kind. You guys are best kind. I'm signing off. Cheers.